Good evening, Canby. Welcome to our first meeting of the new year, January 3rd, 2024. Happy New Year to everybody. If you please stand for the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this great community. I thank you for the year that was and the year coming up to be. Pray for a year of prosperity and good health for our city and for its citizens. I pray that you keep us safe and sound as we enter this year and throughout. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is staff introductions, so I will turn that over to our city manager.
Council, I have the pleasure of introducing Scott Schlag. If you'll stand up, please. Scott is our new finance director. He started yesterday, so he is brand new. He comes to us from the audit firm of Grove, Mueller, and Swank. So he has an audit background. He'll have to learn budgeting and all that other stuff, which he's quickly doing. Scott, do you want to say a few words? Yeah.
Scott.
Scott. I have a
Yeah.
Come up to
I'm
the
sorry,
table
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put you in the hot seat.
in the hot seat.
I'm sorry in advance that your new peers didn't tell you of that. Generally, yeah, we christen you by having you come
Having me
up to the
come
table.
all the way up to test the microphone.
There you go.
So as previously noted, I have an audit background. So I was with Grove, Mueller, and Swank for 12 years. Before that, I was with Moss Adams for 1 year up in Portland and traveled back and forth from Salem. So that was quite a commute, and I had 2 young children, and at the time it was just too much for family. So I found my way to Grove, Mueller, Swank, and Salem. And before that, I actually worked for the Oregon Department of Revenue for about 8 years, also as an auditor, making all sorts of friends with personal income taxes, and then eventually moved on to corporate taxes. And so I was traveling around the U.S. and auditing corporations, trying to bring more money into the state of Oregon. So I have quite an extensive audit background and quite an extensive background with communicating personally with individuals and with education type individuals such as tax managers, CPAs, and in fact I am a CPA and a municipal auditor. So I have quite an extensive background with government accounting, so I have good fund background, and so I'm looking forward to be on the other side of not auditing, and so luckily I've used to audit the City of Canby, but that was like 8 years ago, so it was quite a while ago, and there should be no independence issues, so I won't lose my license.
Scott, what do you like to do in your free time?
In my free time, I actually still continue to play men's adult baseball. So I continue to do that. I also just like to follow my kids around. I have my oldest is in college at Western Oregon. She plays softball there on a scholarship. I'd like to think I did that. And my youngest is a senior in high school, and she has the aspirations of becoming an anesthesiologist. So it's trying to find the money tree to pay for that schooling. So really, I'm just an overpaid driver, car fixer-upper, anything like that my kids need. So, and basically, my wife also works for the Secretary of State. She's the Chief Procurement Officer. Okay. So I have an absorbent amount of procurement background, unfortunately. So anything procurement-wise, I go to the pro.
Okay.
So, yep.
Good to know. Well, we're glad to have you joining our team, and we're very excited. I know that there's transition going on with you and Eric, and so
Yes.
really do appreciate you jumping in and being
Yep.
part of the team.
It's
So
gonna
thank
be
you.
fun.
To the city staff members here, be nice. Okay? Jerry, George, come on. All right. Well, welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Appreciate
Glad
it.
to have you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Any other
you.
question?
No, I don't think so.
We're looking forward to the budget cycle.
That makes one of us.
Said no one ever.
Said no one ever.
I don't know.
Well, someone just
I'm
said
looking
it.
forward to the mid-year budget review. That's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Next on the agenda is citizen input and community announcements. Opportunity for community members to address the council on non-agenda items or to make any kind of community announcements that they wish. If you're interested in speaking or addressing the council, there are yellow cards back on the podium. Please make sure that they get here to the city recorder team, and you will be given your time to speak to us. Do we have anyone online? No? Okay. Well, if you wish to come online and address the council, please reach out to the city recorder or the assistant city recorder by 4:30 on the day of our city council meetings. All right, since we have none, we'll go into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda that includes appointing member Scott Sassy to the Transit Advisory Committee with the term ending March 31st, 2025, appointing member Tiffany Mock to the Library Advisory Board with the term ending June 30th, 2027, appointing member Adrienne Carlson to the Heritage and Landmark Commission with a term ending June 30th, 2026, appointing Amy Noss to the Clackamas County Library District Advisory Committee effective January 3rd, 2024, and approving the minutes of the November 15th, 2023 work session and regular city council meeting, and approving the minutes of the December 6th, 2023 work session and regular city council meeting. That was a lot.
Second.
Got the easy job there, Jason. Now Brian gets to say it all again.
Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Patton to approve the consent agenda, which is the appointment of Scott Sassy to the Transit Advisory Committee with a term ending March 31st, appointment of Tiffany Mock to the Library Advisory Board with a term ending June 30th, 2027, appointment of Adrienne Carlson to the Heritage and Landmark Commission with a term ending June 30th, 2026, appointment of Amy Noss to the Clackamas County Library District Advisory Committee effective January 3rd, 2024, approval of the November 15th, 2023 work session and city council regular meeting minutes, and then the approval of the December 6th, 2023 work session and city council regular minutes. Any discussion or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 4-0. Next on the agenda this evening are one ordinance this evening, and that's ordinance number 1615, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to make, execute, and declare in the name of the city of Canby and on its behalf an appropriate lease agreement with Zimmer Ventures LLC of Canby, or to provide, of Canby, Oregon, to provide leased office space for Canby area transit located at 195 South Hazeldale Way through December 2025, first reading. And Eileen, I'll turn that over to you.
I'll call Todd up. No, sorry. No avoiding it.
We love staff participation. Todd, you know that.
I do. And we have such a short agenda. We need to fill this time up.
All right, well, I have 30 pages, so
You need
I
a
will
hobby.
spend some time. No, I'm kidding. Todd Wood, Transit Director. To just briefly explain what's happening here. So Canby began leasing this facility in 2016. We have continually rented that facility since 2016. That has not changed. The lease technically ended in 2018, and we just continued to pay month to month through that period of time, and we simply increased by 3% every year into whatever the triple net being the maintenance expenses and so on and so forth. Up until last year, when the county came to Mr. Zimmer and said, you need to pay the taxes because apparently, I was not aware of this, neither was he, without an active lease, we are not tax exempt. So this, and I had Mr. Dufin read this thing over, and he said, yes, that is true. So this bridges the gap from 2018 through 2025. Hopefully, we'll have that building close to ready to go, or we'll be bringing this back to you again. So the purpose of this lease, it doesn't change anything I've been paying. It doesn't change anything I'm going to be paying. It simply bridges that gap from 2018 to 2025 so that we can regain our tax exempt status.
Interesting.
Yeah. You'll have to ask the attorney to explain that in more detail if you'd like to understand it.
I would actually like him to explain it as to, one, how does that happen? Two, how was it missed? And three, this does create a stopgap and we will not have to pay?
Well, technically, the landlord has to pay the taxes, whether or not, he builds it back into the lease, or would have. That is not his intention. This lease keeps us where we're at, so.
Okay. Counselor Patton?
So does this make the landlord whole? Because the way I'm understanding what you're saying is that if it had been done a different way, he and we would not be paying taxes.
So we haven't been, we haven't been. It took
Correct.
this amount of time for the county to catch up and say, hey.
You should have been paying taxes.
You should have. They have not asked for the back taxes as far as we know. They're asking us to get the lease in place, then we'll send them a copy of the lease, and we're tax exempt.
So it should correct it retroactively from when?
My understanding is they haven't asked for retroactive.
I think we need to make sure that that's covered, because the last thing I would want is for us to say, we think this is going to be okay, and then 3 years later, someone crawl out from under a rock at the county and be like, oh, we need to bill them for taxes.
I mean, they do have a courthouse issue. Mr. Dufin, do you have any input on this?
We can certainly do that. How Mayor, the gap happened, I don't know, it preceded my time, but the issue basically is that if in these instances where a public entity is leasing property from a private individual, that will always be tax exempt so long as there is a written lease in place. This is the first time I've heard, which is fine, and it's certainly the county's prerogative, where there's been an inquiry about that. I don't want to speak for Todd, but I'm assuming that's kind of what led the landlord to contact the city and say, hey, we got to have this bridge since the one from 2018 technically expired. Certainly can follow up with the county, but I think the reality is, with this in place, assuming the council adopts the ordinance, there shouldn't be any issue going forward. And it really is on the landlord. Of course, we want to be good tenants. So I can't imagine that there's going to be a bill to that effect from the county for any time that passed. But if you'd like us to, we can certainly make sure that loop is closed with the county.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Anyone want to comment on what Mr. Dufman just explained? Do we want to, sounds like a matter of, do we be proactive in kind of one of those go ugly early kinds of things, or let sleeping dogs lie and let them come and ask for it if it needs it? But that's how I'm understanding where we're at, correct? Okay.
Well, once this is signed, because it's 2018 to 2025, this should close that hole.
Okay.
We can verify that, but we have, our landlord's been very good to us. He's really only raised it about 3% a year, which, if you know anything about the industry out there, is completely non-standard. Most people are seeing 10+% increases. So whatever I can do to make this as easy on him as possible is what I would like to do.
Well, and this was elevated by the county, correct?
Correct.
So they're obviously aware of this already.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want us to not be, in my opinion, I do not want us to not address the issue. And so if this is,
At minimum, the lease needs to be put in place. Whether or not they want to come back with us, I mean, come back and ask for the money, then it would fall on him because technically they are his property taxes.
correct.
And whether or not he would then come to us and say, well, I would have built it into the lease, we would have to cross that bridge when it came to it, if necessary.
Okay. And how far out are we, Todd, from groundbreaking and being in the new building?
That's a great question. I don't know. I meet with our architects next week. So
That's a great answer. I appreciate that it's next week. That's good.
not groundbreaking next week.
No,
Just want to be
that's
clear.
But there's a meeting.
I could send Jerry's crew out there and they could start digging. That, they could just.
Turn over some asphalt.
Yeah.
And call it. See, we started. Okay. Councilor Patton, did you have something?
I don't know about everybody else up here, but I would be much more comfortable if this was like buttoned up a little tighter than saying, we're going to do this and hopefully the county's okay with it. And they aren't going to come back to Mr. Zimmer and request a bunch of taxes and stuff. He has been very patient with us. I think we were supposed to be out of that space some time ago and we haven't. And he's been very good with rent and all that stuff. So I think as a good neighbor, we should do everything in our power to make sure that this doesn't rear its ugly head later after this. I don't know what other people's temperatures are.
What would you do to make
Eileen, did you have a comment on that?
I was just going to say that I think between Mr. Doofman and Mr. Wood, we can probably figure out a way to diplomatically ask the county.
Okay.
We can do that. At the end of the day, this lease still has to be in place, one way or the other, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, and maybe we just talk to Mr. Zimmer as well and make sure that, whatever we might do proactively, he has no objection to. I agree with Todd in that regard for sure.
And when they redid the lease, just if you look through it, they did not put anything in there that says, they've been very clear about this is what we expect over the next few years. There's nothing in there that says, unless this doesn't get signed, then we're coming back to you for the taxes. I mean, we could, but I will absolutely get in contact with, in this case, it would be Brooks Cutsford is managing this lease for Zimmer Enterprises.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, Councilor Patton, to satisfy your question, because it's an ordinance and we have two readings, would it be okay with you to at least approve it here on first reading, that then they have homework to do and get it done and bring it back to us?
Oh, yeah, I have no problem approving it. I just want to make sure that the wheels, behind the scenes, we're making sure this is buttoned up.
Sure.
And then if for some reason after this is approved later on down the road, we need to do some sort of stopgap thing, we can do that. But at least this is in motion because it's got to be through two readings.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
We will report back at the second reading.
Perfect.
Okay.
Appreciate that very much. Any other comments or questions regarding the lease here for Canby Area Transit? Okay. Todd, thank you. Is there a motion or? No. Yes, Councilor Patton.
I move to approve ordinance number 1615, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to make, execute, and declare in the name of the City of Canby and on its behalf an appropriate lease agreement with Zimmer Ventures LLC of Canby, Oregon, to provide leased office space for Canby Area Transit located at 195 South Hazeldale Way through December of 2025 to a second reading on January 17th, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Patton and seconded by Councilor Davis to approve ordinance number 1615, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to make, execute, and declare in the name of the City of Canby and on its behalf an appropriate lease agreement with Zimmer Ventures LLC of Canby, Oregon, to provide leased office space for Canby Area Transit located at 195 South Hazeldale Way through December 2025, up for a second reading on January 17th of 2024. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0. Next is old business in the city attorney recruitment piece.
I have no report tonight on it. This is just on your item, or on your agenda as a standard agenda item, so.
Great. I'll move in and take care of some mayor's business pieces. Real quickly, Clackamas County Coordinating Committee will be meeting tomorrow evening, and a lot of that is going to be about the upcoming legislative agenda with the short session coming up here, starting at the end of the month, beginning of February. So that'll be a lot of the agenda for tomorrow night. The Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation is meeting later in this month. Again, a lot of that is going to be, there's a lot of conversation still around tolling on 205, the Interstate Bridge project and where that is at, and then discussion around the, we'll say, elimination of funding for a lot of the state highway transportation projects that over the next, or I guess ongoing until further notice. I want to remind the council that we have a goal-setting session for us on February 16th. That is a Friday. That'll be kind of an all-day extravaganza with food, drinks, and prizes for everyone. Next week, after the city council open seat interviews, we will be doing a goal-setting session with our new city administrator in exec session, so we'll be having that. So if there's things that you are hoping or wishing to have Eileen be thinking about or wanting to include in her goals from us in moving forward, please come prepared for that discussion on next Wednesday.
Mr. Mayor, a question about that.
Yes.
I assume with 4 candidates, we should be able to deliberate, vote, and appoint that night. Can we have the judge here to also swear in so that that person can attend the goal-setting session with Eileen?
I don't know. That's, I guess, we can have, I mean, next thing here on my piece is to talk about what next Wednesday will look like. So, do you mind tabling that until then?
Absolutely.
Oh, look.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Perfect. And I'll get to that here in a second. Also, that will be under discussion, not on the 10th, but on the 17th. I just want to address some of the committee liaison roles that we have. We've got a couple that don't have counselors as liaisons to them, and there's been some asks by some of the current committees for just, they had given me some input, so be thinking about the ones that are open. If there's ones that any of you are interested in picking up or making a change or whatnot, and that way the new city councilor will take whatever we don't want it to do. Just kidding, whoever that is.
Yeah, which ones are open?
I do not know off the top of my head which ones are open, but I will make sure that Maya and CJ get that out to us so that we know. And it's on the website as well.
Oh, okay.
Finally, for conversation this evening, there's been a couple of questions or some conversation wanting to be had about the process for next week's city council interviews. We have 2 pieces I think we need to talk about. One is how do we want the format to go? And the second piece is, I know that the list of questions that we have are up here. If there's things that questions we want to eliminate, change, add to, that way staff can get out the list of questions to the candidates here in the next couple of days. So first piece up, so I've had some conversation with a couple of you about the process for when the decision comes. I know we have in the past done we go through, we interview everybody, and then there's been the conversation of, who may or may not be your top one or two candidates to, I guess, whittle down the selection piece to then create conversation about. That's how it's been done. I know the last couple of interviews, we've had it where it's been just jumping right in after the interviews, a motion being made, and that person being selected without necessarily much conversation. But again, it's another way of doing it. There may be another way that you all want to entertain. So I will open it up for thoughts, comments. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be interested in hearing, we have two councilors that have gone through that process and what their thoughts are on how we can improve the process. I was disappointed in the last process and just the fact that I really didn't feel like we got good information in regards to when they came up, because some people had done it before. We had a lot of new councilors, didn't know the people. And so, I'm very interested in who are they? Who are you? Why do you want to be on council? I want to keep it real straightforward and pretty simple. And so I don't think we need 6 questions. Tell us why you want to be on city, who are you and why do you want to be on city council? And the last process we actually did go around, everybody did comment on the strengths and weaknesses of why they supported an individual, and I like that process. But I would be interested to hear from our new city councilors how they feel we can improve the process.
Well, if you remember, for me, I ended up showing up late because I didn't quite understand what was the process, and so perhaps I think the one thing I said could be improved upon is each one of these candidates should probably be getting an email telling them what time to be here, because I was under the impression that it started at 7 and I guess it was 6, so I was actually waiting in my office just to go down and then they called me and said, hey, come on down. And so I think maybe that could have been a little bit more formalized, maybe get somebody from the city saying, hey, this is what show up here at this time, this date, so that way you don't have anybody almost fall through the cracks like I almost did, but I got selected, so. Anyway. So that's one thing I can think of right off the bat that could be improved upon.
Clearer communication, okay.
Yes, Councilor Patton.
So I have been through the interview process 7 times, maybe 8.
I think 8.
And I got to tell you, it tends to be quite frustrating. So back in the Wayback Machine, how it was sort of done was everybody would get interviewed, people would rank their top 3 or whoever, and then each counselor would be given an opportunity to explain, what that ranking was, why they felt that way. And after that conversation, if there was kind of a consensus candidate that came of that, then that was sort of job done. I am a fan of doing it that way. I think it's way more transparent. I think it is more not only transparent for the community, but transparent for the people who are going through the interview process. And I don't think it bloodies up the water so much. I've always felt that the race to a motion or a nominee just bloodies the water and makes it very contentious. So I'm a fan of trying to break that up so that, there isn't that going on. Another thing I would like is a lot of times, since how we're doing it is its own meeting. And I had actually had a conversation with Councilor Davis about this, is to give us ample time to interact with these candidates to really get a good feel for them. And considering they're going to be our only folks, there's only 4 of them, I think even if we gave them a maximum of, and don't stab me, but like a half an hour to really interact with these people, like a maximum of half an hour. If it goes faster, great. If not, then, we give them ample time to answer some of these questions, and then give each city councilor an opportunity to ask a question of their own. Unfortunately, in this position, when you go into the grocery store, you don't have a printout like this when the citizen tells you, why is there a hole in my road? To say, oh yeah, hole in the road. Yes, this is the answer. They have to be able to think a little bit on their toes. And so I think that would help with that. And as long as the questions are consistent amongst each candidate, I think that would be fine. Another thing, and this might be going a little out there, I think that the candidates should be outside of the room. I think that the candidate being interviewed should be in here, and the candidates that have not been interviewed yet or will be coming in to be interviewed should be outside of this room, not hearing what the candidate says. The reason I say that is because oftentimes the first candidate, like if they've really done their homework and all that, the other candidates have now gotten a chance to hear everything that they're going to say, and they're like, oh yeah, what so-and-so said. And then likewise, the last candidate, if they've really done their homework and they're last and they've heard the other candidates say exactly the same thing, they come up and are like, oh, well, you've already heard this before, right? I think that poisons the water for those candidates. So once the interview is done, once a candidate is interviewed, if they want to sit in the room and hear what the other candidates have to say, great. But I would advocate for those candidates that are waiting to be interviewed to be put in a soundproof booth somewhere in City Hall and then ushered in, waving, and then we give out the crown at the end of the whole thing. So those are some of the things that I would like to see sort of change through this process.
Okay.
And one last thing I will say, sorry.
Okay.
And this is something I did have a conversation with Mr. Doofman about this. I mean, as far as whether they're sworn in that night to then be part of the process of the goal setting, technically by the city charter, as soon as we agree that this person X is the city councilor, they're it. The swearing in is a formality. And so technically, once we say you're the person, whether they're sworn in that night or not, effectively, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Doofman, they can participate in that process as a counselor because they're essentially a counselor.
That's right. Mr. Doofman?
Yeah, I think that is right. I mean, the way your charter reads. So, the oath obviously is something, that is important. I don't mean to suggest that, you just sort of put that aside. But to the extent that that's something, the oath, that the council would want to see happen, before the new counselor has any right to, weigh in on anything, I would suggest just maybe delaying the technical actual appointment until the night that would happen. That's cleaner in my mind.
Okay.
Because I'd hate to have the judge sitting here that whole time.
Well,
waiting
and
for
I have
us to
another
do a thing.
thought on that, so you wouldn't like.
Thank you, Jason.
That's what I have.
Okay. Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I likewise like the process that we've done in the past, and we kind of did it last time as well, where we ranked, some of them only picked one person, but, with 4 candidates, I think ranking our top 2 is sufficient. I don't know that we need to give a half hour with, my next suggestion is to not have 6 questions, like Councilor Denver said. Honestly, there's a couple on here I've already scratched off, in my opinion, aren't as important, and I mean, obviously it takes a consensus of all of us to decide this, but I'll be happy to discuss the questions if that's what you want to do. But I'm thinking that just tell us about yourself and what appeals to you, why you want to be counselor. I think number 2 is important. What's the most pressing concern in Canby, what their opinion of that is, and maybe an idea or two of what they would suggest as a way to address it. I don't think number 3 is super important to talk about in an interview. That's just kind of something that we can deal with in the goal setting session. do you have a specific goal or improvement? It's kind of nice to know if somebody's coming on with their own ideas of what they want to talk about. So I think number 4 is important. And number 5, I could give or take, because honestly, again, that's something we could discuss in the goal setting session, because that's kind of, our policy on how we work with each other. I don't think it's important in an interview. So if we're down to 3 questions, and then that gives us the opportunity to, like Councilor Patton said, we actually had that when I interviewed, in the prehistoric days, every counselor had one question that they could ask. They had to ask the same question to each candidate, but there was that random question. And I remember what Councilor Ayers' question was to me, too. I also remember what Councilor Patton's was. And to be fair, I don't remember anybody else's, but I remember those 2. You want to know what color door I was going to have.
Yeah.
And Councilor Ayers wanted to know what I thought about Caprid. Anyway, and so those, but as long as you ask the same question to each one, I think that's important. So that would give us 4 questions, but also the opportunity in 4 questions if we had a follow-up. Say they told us about something that they had an idea about, and we were like, tell us more about that. We'd have the opportunity and the time to do that. I think we could still do that in about 20 minutes per person, about an hour and a half for the meeting. And so that brings me to, since Mr. Doofman said we could actually have that individual participate in the executive session without being sworn in, I'm fine with that. It also gives the judge doesn't have to sit here through the whole meeting. He can be here at 7 o'clock at the next meeting on the 17th. And it also gives that candidate the chance to have his or her family there. Well, in this case, it would be his. I think we only have men this time. But that way they can have their family come and not have to sit through the whole interview process on the chance that they might be the one chosen. So I like that idea better, doing the swearing in on the 17th and just having the prevailing candidate attend the executive session. And with that, I think that's all of my ideas. Oh, and actually, I will agree also with Councilor Patton that maybe we have the candidates sit in the lobby until their interview time. And then they could stay. They don't have to go back out to the lobby necessarily, but yeah, because there is a lot of that. In fact, we had a couple of interviews in the past that were pretty aloof because of that. Oh, you already know me, or, oh, well, what he said, I agree with that. And I think you get a lot more, a better idea of who they really are rather than who they're mimicking. And that's all I have.
Okay. Yes.
I like both ideas. I like Jason's idea of putting them out in the hall, taking the time with the candidates that we need, and being prepared to answer any follow-up questions. I agree with Tracy in regards to her questions too. I think that would be appropriate, and making sure that they get the questions well in advance.
Except the counselor question.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Councilor Stearns.
Just a thought I had, and again, I'm the newbie, so probably it's probably a strange thought, but I was thinking that it might be a good idea to wait to make the decision until either later on in the meeting or something to that effect, because sometimes you like to have some time to think it over, mull it over. For me, anyway, sometimes my first initial, if we have to make a decision that night, then there's a pressure to make a decision even though you may not be happy with it or settle without thinking it over a lot. So I'm just, even though I know I was chosen on the spot, and maybe that was, some people regret that, but I sometimes these kind of decisions, it makes it so it may be better just to mull it over a little bit and not have to go make the decision right after the last person stops speaking, so to speak. But I mean, I'm not, that's the thought that came to me.
Okay. Council President.
Thank you. To that point, we've always made the decision same night, so that we didn't have the same situation of having to vote on it and then swearing them in later in the meeting and that kind of thing, but maybe just a small recess after the interviews. And you can do your own little mulling, and then we come back and discuss, and if that gives you some time to come to this table with a discussion with a clear thought of who you like or need to review what you just learned
I'm just
Take
slow,
some
I
time.
guess.
Take
Maybe.
some time with your notes over like 5-7 minute recess, and then we deliberate and vote. I would prefer that option versus waiting to the next meeting to vote. I would like to select the person on the 10th.
You're not slow in the uptake. This group is notorious for wanting to take in information, kick the tires, run it around the block a little bit, and then have a decision on it. So I totally get where you're at.
We
Councilor
noodle.
Stearns. Yeah, this has been historically, since I've been on it, very much a group that noodles things over. Sometimes maybe we need to noodle a little bit more, but that's a conversation for another time. So the things that I hear from you all is, again, some of the clear expectations for the applicants that on January 10th at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Will be interviews. Is that what we've got slated? Okay. In terms of the questions, I see some, counselors to the right and left of me that have scratched out some of the, do we have opinions on which 3 or 4 we want? I think number 1, I think is
1, 2, and 4 were the ones that I suggested earlier.
I would agree with that. I think if we give them just 3 questions, and instead of, it's what, 2 hour that night?
About an hour and a half probably
About an hour
is
and
what
a
we'll end up with, I think.
15, 20 minutes each should suffice, getting to know them quite a bit, giving them time to answer the questions fully, and still giving time to kind of mull it over a bit, like Councilor Stearns had mentioned. I think 3 questions should be fine. I believe it'd be 1, 2, and 4. 5 is,
That could, if someone's really liking that one, that could be their counselor question.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that gives us an opportunity to have them have more thoughtful answers rather than just a couple one-liners, because we have historically held them to like 5 minutes an answer. And so now they can give us a more wordy answer to really explain
Yeah.
how they feel about that one particular topic.
okay. Councilor Patton?
I'm fine with whacking 3 and 5. I think 6 is just going to naturally come at the end of any interview. So,
Well, yeah.
Okay.
but no, I'm good with 2, 3, and 4 being the primary.
2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, and 4?
Or yeah, 1, 2, and 4. No, screw 3. 3's gone.
Councilor Stearns,
Three's outta here.
your thought? Those work for you?
Yeah, they work for me. I remember my interview, I think I was repeating myself a lot just because the questions were similar enough that kept saying the same thing over again.
Yeah. Okay. So 1, 2, and 4 will be our core questions, and then each counselor will come up with their own question. And again, there is the opportunity that if the door gets opened or the window gets opened, if there's follow-up, which I suspect that there should be, then whatever that follow-up it is. It doesn't have to be, it's not necessarily have to be asked of the core questions need to be the same, the follow-ups do not. Everyone's
Right.
okay understanding that piece of it?
Correct.
Councilor Patton?
I doubt this is going to happen, but just to be safe, when we come up with our individual counselor question, should we maybe send that to Eileen so that she can see if any of us have duplicated ourselves or come close to duplicating ourselves? Because we really can't talk about that behind the scenes because we'll be creating a meeting and we want to have it hashed out before that night. So I think that might be, because then she can communicate with us and say, well, you might want to rethink this question because there's a similar question to it, that sort of thing.
I would probably, Eileen, correct me if I'm wrong. I
Or
would say,
you or whoever.
no, not me.
No.
Maybe Maya or CJ can field that email. Thoughts on that, Eileen?
I was under the impression that the questions might come out of what the person says, so.
That would be the follow-up questions. The core counselor question has to be the same for each 4 candidates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so whatever
We're happy
Jason
to-
picks, he has to ask all 4. and
Okay,
all the
then
way
we're
down.
happy to collect those.
I think there's probably only a couple of us that would step on each other's toes, and wouldn't be a quorum if he and I talked about that.
Plus, we got to make sure the questions are not illegal or any kind of.
Yeah. We'll take a look at them, which brings up the issue of get them to us by,
End of day
Friday.
tomorrow.
I was going to say Friday.
I was going to say by Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
And then they can look at it Monday and go, try again.
Yeah. End of day Friday.
Okay.
So I have a question to avoid, doing something inappropriate. We've gotten all copies of the questions and biographies of these people. Is this still considered confidential at this point, or is this something I can discuss with people who are curious about who want to give input to a city councilor on who the next city councilor should be?
So that is a great question. Since it has been sent out to all of the council, it's public record, so it could be asked for. And so if someone asks you, who's running or who's, put their name in for the position, you are absolutely free to tell them who that is. And then the packet for that's going to go out here Friday, probably.
Yeah.
Before the end of the week, so it'll be, if it's not public information yet, it'll definitely be public information here. Wider spread by the end of the week.
So we can discuss, I can get feedback from people about how resumes look and that sort of thing. I'm asking the question just because.
I would say probably not asking community input. I think you can take the input. If someone comes up and says, hey, I have a thought on candidate X, and here are the things that I know or whatever, you can just say, well, thank you, I appreciate that, and I'll take it under advisement. Would be the cleanest way, I think, to clear that up.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't solicit the opinions,
No.
but we sometimes get emails from people saying their support for candidate X, Y, or Z, and those go to all of us when those come in. That's happened in the past.
Councilor Patton.
Yeah, I wouldn't like hand out like the resume of the person, and definitely it is important that the people's contact information and like their address and stuff is redacted. So not
think it already
sharing
is.
that, but as far as who the candidate is and what people's experience are with that person, I there's no problem with that.
Does that help? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, at this point, Maya is a seasoned pro at the process, so I have no doubt that what needs to be redacted will be redacted. Okay, in terms of just the time piece, I think we leave it open-ended. I mean, I do interviews all the time, and sometimes my interviews are 10 minutes, and sometimes they're 45. Depends on the position, depends on the flow and the connection with the person I'm interviewing. So to Jason's point, I don't think we necessarily lock it down to like, okay, your timer starts now, read us your answers, but truly allow time for engagement.
I think we should have a cap, though, to be fair to the rest of the
We
candidates.
should have a cap. You get somebody that's a little bit long-winded, it's going to turn sideways pretty quick.
I suppose that's true. However, based on the people that have been up on this council in the last 14 years, being long-winded has never stopped us from appointing somebody. So, present company.
Present company included.
I was going to say excluded. I wasn't naming names, but
No, but Mayor, that does bring up the issue in terms of what we tell the candidates. Will they all be here at 6 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what order will they go in?
Make them draw straws.
Maybe, just, I don't know.
We've done it.
Alphabetical, or-
We've done it every which way that I can think.
Order, alphabetical, we've done order they've come in.
There's an app that you can do. They've done it at work for
The randomizer.
it's like a wheel, and you
Okay.
can bring up the wheel and you can put the people's name on the wheel and then spin it. And so I'd say like either do balls or write it on balls or something.
Draw
We just
straws.
became a game
Figure
show.
that out. Figure that out.
We
in
will figure
advance.
that out.
I was going to say, I'm sure,
Yes.
is devolving quickly, so
Yes,
let
it
me bring it
is.
back to
Yeah,
fine.
I realize that.
Let's not do any
My
Powerball balls
apologies,
or-
yeah.
However, I would
But
agree.
Lingo.
it won't be like one person at
Yeah, this one
6,
too.
one person at 6:20, one
No,
person.
no.
okay.
No,
Got it.
because, yeah.
Yeah, we can have them
But that's
draw
why I-
numbers, we can do whatever.
Yeah.
But that's why I think we
Sounds
should
good.
cap it so that, candidate 4 doesn't have to sit in the lobby for 2 hours.
We could do it by application time. Who applied first, who came in second?
I'm talking
We could
about
do it
No,
time.
I know what you're talking about, but
Am I the only one that thinks we should cap it? I'll shut up if I'm
I
the only
said
one that
half an
thinks-
hour, and everybody looked at me like
I
I had
honestly
6
think-
heads.
okay.
I was thinking 20 minutes.
In one hand, I think half an hour might go a little bit long, but on the other hand, I still believe we should cap it, though.
Yeah.
Well, and it may not go a half hour.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
And
I mean,
that's
if we want
fine.
to cap it a
Yeah.
half
I
hour.
was going to say
I'm fine
20
with it.
minutes, but you're
Yeah.
saying 45, so I'm all of a sudden Jason's 30 sounds really
Maybe we
good.
should give everybody 20 minutes, and we have the option of extending it if we want to.
I'm just putting stuff out there.
Eileen
You're
seems to
all
think 20
process.
minutes is
20
good.
minutes.
20 minutes, and then if it goes to 25, a trap door opens underneath.
And they just fall down
That
and-
works.
Asking the question.
That works.
All right.
However, how would we do
there a trap door
with
down
Yes, only under
the
your
rest
chair.
of the applicants sitting in the lobby or in another room?
What do you
We're going to need somebody to be able to get them and bring them in one by one.
I can help.
Maya's, just raise your hand. Just like that'd be me.
We'll have, George left, so we can volunteer Chief Tro
Here we go.
to be,
That works.
the getter.
That's what he gets for leaving her.
That works.
Okay, got that solved. Next problem.
Oh, we're good.
No, we're good. We got a plan.
I think we got a
Everyone
plan.
feeling comfortable with how this is
Yeah.
being laid out?
I like it.
I like it.
Okay, great. We got our questions covered. We got, okay.
Perfect.
Now,
There's one last thing I'm going to throw out here, okay?
Okay.
So in my research about how this process could be, it was in my conversation with Mr. Doofman, it is pretty loosey-goosey about how this process should be as far as in the charter or in the council rules or procedures or whatever. And it's one, and my hope would be that maybe if this process works well, that we kind of define the process within those council like standards, so that councils after us have a more like paved path to follow.
so you're talking about this in terms of our goal setting on the 16th of February to kind of,
Yes, I can bring that up at that.
yeah, let's do that.
That list is getting quite long. just so
No,
you know.
Oh, dear.
Sure it is.
That's why the whole day. The first half
Breakfast,
is
lunch, and then
Jason's list.
snacks. Okay. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, I think we got it pretty dialed in.
Everyone's good? Yep. Okay.
And if it works, then that's what we write down on the 16th.
We'll move into councilor comments and liaison reports. Mr. Patton.
Okay. So now that Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all the other holidays are over, I can start to get my stuff sorted out and start attending the my liaison meetings. So I haven't been to any of those recently, but what I can say is that one of the, so the library tour happened on December 16th. I mentioned I was one of the houses on that. There was a little over 42 people that attended that, so I thought that was pretty good, considering it's the first time they've done the tour of homes in many years before COVID hit. So and it was only 2 houses, so I thought that was very good. So hopefully they choose to do that again next year and more people attend. So that was really good. The Willamette Falls Landing Heritage Area Coalition. I will just update on that real quick. I have signed up like an idiot for the projects committee. So I've put another plate in the air, so that'll be fun. And last night I helped move furniture out of the old Westland City Hall. The Westland City Council approved the contract to refurbish or rehab the old Westland City Hall, which will become the home of the Heritage coalition. And so we're looking forward to getting that up and running. They'll have the old Oregon photos stored there and all of that. So this has been a long time coming. And then the legislative committee has been meeting quite a bit because they are preparing to move forward in the next legislative session, I believe, with the federal approval of the heritage site there at the Falls. So lots of work coming up for them. So that's been an exciting group to be a part of. On a sad note, I've been a member of the Canby Lions Club for many years, and there's two members, myself and one other, and he needs to step down. So as of next week, after almost 80 years of existence, the Canby Lions Club will be no more. It will be closed. So we will be handing over a charter to Lions International and shutting all of that down. I have been transferred, as the only Canby Lion, I have been transferred to Oregon City and attended my first meeting with them last night. So that is, it is unfortunate, but two people can only do so much. And then a question that I had, it was mentioned, it brought up the library district, the taxi district thing. It's been a while since I've asked this question. Is there any sort of updates on where we're at with reviewing those boundaries of the taxi district and getting the money that we need for, because we cover, the Canby Library covers more area than what we are getting tax increment from. And I know that's an ongoing thing. I just want to make sure that doesn't slide off the plate, kind of where we're at with all that.
It is a big issue, and it's bigger than Canby. So I think that the county is in the process of looking at the library district advisory committee in general, how it's funded. And I think the best thing to do would be to convey, which we actually already have conveyed the feelings about this issue to the library or to Clackamas County. I would say that let's see what Clackamas County is deciding to do with the library district, because it is a conversation that's having about the entire library district.
Okay.
So I would
put a pin back in it.
They know how Canby feels.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we
But
jump
there's-
in the Wayback Machine again tonight, there was, what year are we in, 2024? So 2018, 2019, there was a big library district meeting just about this topic. And unfortunately, Canby is a bigger issue than Canby. However, Canby and I think two other cities are the ones that have a similar situation where their service area is greater than what they're collecting from.
Yeah.
And so there was not much appetite by the other members to open up having dialogue, just having dialogue about it, let alone going to the point of redistricting what that would look like. And then the county's position was, no, we don't want to open this up. So that's where it was back then in the couple meetings that I went to. And so it's just been kind of status quo. So if the county is looking at it, I'm envisioning a big Viking stove range, and it's on the back burner for the county, but it is an issue that we deal with every year when it comes to our budget and what we don't collect in terms of library services fees.
It's come up in, Canby has raised it as has a couple of other cities. And so the county is aware that it needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Where it is in the overall scheme of things and priorities, I don't know, but it is it's been raised here in the last year as something that the county needs to look at.
Okay, well, I will just say that when it comes time to poke badgers, you let me know, because this is one badger I want to really poke.
Okay.
I want to get this badger moving. And that's it for me. Yay!
Thank you, Councilor Patton. Councilor Maldonado.
I wish I had half his energy sometimes. Unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, I wasn't able to catch up with Bikes of Heads this week. However, within the next couple of days, I will have something to report for you guys.
Okay. Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You already touched on C4 being tomorrow, so I will just talk about Traffic Safety Commission. We had a couple of citizens come to us recently, and one item, I don't think this was a citizen one, though. This is a commission one. There's going to be some new painting, and Jerry can correct me if something's changed since the meeting, but crosswalk paint at 4th and Ivy on the north side. So that draws more attention to that intersection where people cross. And so maybe folks will slow down a little bit and allow pedestrians to cross the street safely. There's still discussions on one-way streets for South 2nd and 3rd. That's still being discussed, how they're going to go about talking to the neighbors, et cetera. So that's an ongoing conversation. The other citizen that came to us was from on Knightsbridge Road, in the corner as you're coming like into town and coming up to Grant, that stop. The house in the corner, when I used to live on Knightsbridge Road, this happened. A car ended up in the house. So that's where they ended up with the Jersey barrier, and they landscaped it and all. Somebody back in August hit the thing again and ended up with the car on its top in her yard. So now they have a giant boulder. They're wanting some kind of help in mitigating that problem. So what was decided in the meeting, and Spencer is working on, as far as I know, unless this has changed, and he's still nodding, so I'm still good. They're going to put a curve ahead sign just before the cemetery, and then put reflective yellow paint on the curb in front of the house. Because most of the time this stuff happens at night. In fact, the one in August was at night. It was a drunk driver. So if you're seeing something bright and shiny and yellow in front of you, you might think to turn. So that's, hopefully will fix the problem. If not, we'll readdress it. So that's kind of the conservative measures that they wanted to take to try to help her out. And finally, we had the Yorkfield HOA come to us a couple of times about that whole area. It's the Darcy Estates, all the housing down in the old Honda pits, and the townhouses on the upside on 3rd there in Aspen, and between Cedar and the Aspen, yeah. And that entire area is speed limit 25. But having I lived there, so I understand that it's very dense. Cars park on both sides of the road, and for the circumstances, with as many kiddos in the neighborhood, and there's the basketball park right there, that cars are parked along the whole way, ball goes out, kid right behind it, 25 is too fast. Delivery drivers have argued with the neighbors saying we're being legal. They are being legal. They are going 25, but they're just not paying attention to the safety of the situation and the danger of the situation. So it has been requested that we lower the speed limit in that entire neighborhood. Officer Miller, who attends our meetings, found ORS 810.180, Section 11, provides for a municipality to lower the speed limit by 5 miles. So the request is to lower the neighborhood speed to 20 miles per hour. I will say there was somebody on the commission who wanted it to be 15, but we had to tell this person that we have to start realistically. We will have to get ODOT involved if we want to lower it more than that, and that's probably not going to happen. So the request is to lower it from 25 to 20, and so I am just looking for consensus from my colleagues that we direct staff to bring us an ordinance
What was the street again?
the entire neighborhood of Darcy Estates. So it'd be Southeast 2nd and First and Second and Aspen and Birch, I think it is.
Southeast.
So just south of the post office, that whole neighborhood down the hill.
So you know where the police station is?
Yeah.
It's
Before
that
you get there.
whole- As you're driving out to the police station, it's that whole set of housing to your left if you're driving out across from.
Yeah, and that's, yeah, the dump or the Honda pits, people call it, yeah.
So they want to move this, yeah, that is kind of poorly designed road, I think, they're pretty narrow.
So that's why the HOA is asking for it to be, speed limit to be dropped.
Yeah, and Officer Miller did find
Conversation.
that Oregon state statute does provide for a municipality to do that on their own without having to have ODOT involved with it. So we can do it by ordinance by 5 miles an hour. So the request is for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit.
So, I mean, I gotta put my microphone on. And I'm just thinking out loud on this. Having a speed limit posted from 25 to 20, is that going to actually change people's speeds without a lot of enforcement? Or I think if you want to slow down cars, one of the best things to do is put stop signs up. That slows everybody down.
There's a lot of rules about stop signs. And I think we will have enforcement. As I said, Officer Miller attends our meetings. He's very aware of the problem and the complaints from the HOA. So I think that it would be enforced. And noodle all that. The ask tonight is just to direct staff to bring us the ordinance, and we can look at it then. So start writing down your questions for that meeting.
Councilor Maldonado and then Councilor Patton.
I would definitely say, I've been down in there and it's tightly packed. It's really tightly packed. I've almost hit a couple people myself just going through there at 25. They can come out behind a car and you don't even see them. But now on that, we're able to drop it by 5 miles an hour. Is it just at a time or just as a whole?
That I'm not sure. I think,
Mayor was
that's a
shaking
good
his
question.
head.
That's a good question for legal or
Jerry, would
Officer
you like to
Miller.
join us here at the table?
I would.
Thank you, Jerry.
Oh, yeah, Public Works might know the answer to this question.
It sounds like it might be up your alley.
Yeah. Oh, Mayor and Council. Yeah, I had a conversation with Chief Tro about this right before Christmas, in fact, and we're kind of with this. I wanted to follow up in our leadership team meeting tomorrow on this, but I'm thinking maybe we do more of a recommendation and we let the city administrator lower the speed on this. That's what we've done in the past here. And that's what he was saying, that we can lower. We actually, several years ago, lowered the speed out here in front of City Hall to 20 miles an hour. And Tro says that's enforceable by that.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is find out what the actual rules are tomorrow. We'll talk about it in our leadership and bring back whether it's an ordinance or if we need to, or if we can just make the decision off a recommendation from traffic safety.
Okay, yeah, because that is their recommendation. And so
Yeah.
I talked with Eileen about it, and she asked me to bring it up here and get consensus to direct her to get an ordinance together. So I guess I will reword my request and say, let's direct staff to bring us an ordinance or their plan of action.
I'd appreciate that, because if we can just go off the recommendation and change this, the signage without going through all that, that would be great. And I don't know, Councilor Maldonado, if I answered your question.
Are we able, is it that we're only able to drop it by 5 miles an hour?
That is
As a
correct.
whole, or can we drop it 5 now and
If
say
20
that's
doesn't
still
work.
too fast? Can we drop it 5 again at a later date?
The way I understand it, and I've done a lot of these requests with ODOT, is that you would have to, if you can drop it 5, and if I remember correctly, don't hold me to this, if you wanted to take it back up 5, you would have to contact ODOT, or raising it. It has different rules, but if you wanted to lower it again, it would definitely have to go through a traffic study
Okay.
after that to go lower.
Okay.
My only concern about having it be a staff decision is the public input piece.
Yep.
Because I know that we have the HOA that obviously, ideally represents the whole in that community, but it would be, so I don't know if there's a way to do that.
Mayor, if I could just jump in, maybe
Yes, sir.
up here. It's got to be by ordinance.
Yes, sir.
the statute requires it, in this case, with respect to this 5 mile an hour drop from the statutory speed, it's got to be by ordinance. So that piece is.
Okay,
Okay, so you guys are going to have to be the bad guys then.
okay.
Well, but then, like the mayor said, we get the public input opportunity.
It would, yes.
So then I go back to my original request.
So saying that, David, what about the one we changed out here without ordinance? That's what I mean, is that not enforceable?
So when did that happen?
Probably 6-7 years ago.
And so it may be because there's a lot of different definitions about whether it's located in a residence district, what type of street it is. So I wouldn't say categorically no, but we may want to look at it and maybe if we have to take a second action, whether that's by ordinance or something else, we could do that.
Yeah, and you can post it whatever you want. It just takes someone knowing the rules to be able to get out of a ticket if we don't follow the proper procedure is the risk.
No, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. It's worth looking at. It's I just don't know. I mean, even with this one that, I don't think we have to get in the weeds right now. I think the request is to sort of look at it and come back and if there are issues. But, there's a definition here that I don't know whether even the street that we're talking about meets. I assume it does, but we just need to look at that too.
Okay, well, thanks for the clarification on it. That helps. And we'll have a follow-up, maybe conversation tomorrow about this. Okay. That's all I have.
Thanks. Councilor Patton.
Yeah, I have no problem endorsing something like this. What I would like to do is when we get the report on this, I'd like to see like a map with the streets in question highlighted so we know for sure which ones they are. And if there's businesses and stuff that are impacted, maybe reach out to them to let them know.
No businesses there. It's completely residential.
Okay, it doesn't go into the industrial area there? Okay. So the other thing I think is, I'm trying to think, it's been, it sounds to me like this is not going to fix the fundamental problem of people speeding because most people, I live on Birch, we've got speed humps. Now people have figured out they can go over them at like 10 miles over the speed limit and they're fine, depending on the wheelbase of their vehicle. So if there's like a basketball court there, do we maybe look at fencing, other things long-term to mitigate this problem? Because I can guarantee you that just dropping the speed limit by 5 miles an hour is not going to stop a kid from getting run over. So I would be curious as to what a long-term plan is for kind of mitigating the speed in the area. And then I would also be a fan of just covering our bases. And if there's an ordinance changing the speed limit for there, we just do an ordinance for this out here, so that way it's covered and there'll be no questions about it.
Sure.
Councilor Maldonado.
I would actually agree. Realistically, we have to look at what other traffic control means we can do, whether it be speed bumps, rumble strips, whatever, something that'll help.
Or bump outs, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know that the fire
I know.
like the speed ups,
I see him over there shaking his head too.
Or like like if they're going a certain speed, all of a sudden like a metal child jumps out of the road and smashes their car. I don't know, something. We need to do something other than just the speed.
Well, your imagination's really working tonight.
I'm psyched. I am super psyched.
Eileen, did you have
Yes, I
something
did
about
want to
that?
say
Council President
something. There might be a difference, as Mr. Duffman said, about the definition between this street out here, because it is commercial, versus something that's in a residential area.
Yeah.
So we can't necessarily, I understand what the request is, but we may have to treat the two,
Differently.
separately. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and I believe that's fine. I just believe that we may want to take a route of not just one traffic control device in that neighborhood. We may have to look at two separate types.
Yeah. That's one question I made a note of. We will figure out how can we reduce the speed in that neighborhood. What are the legal means by which we can do that?
Okay.
Stop sign. That always works.
Okay. So I think we got consensus. Oh, sorry, you good?
Yeah, just to speak to that real quick. First, on the stop signs, there's stop signs everywhere in that neighborhood that are already appropriate.
Yeah.
There's, and the only place there isn't a stop, in fact, there is stop signs at the traffic circle. So there's stop signs at all the corners.
Signs of the traffic circle.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Well, it's not really a true traffic circle is why. It's more of an ornamental thing. It's
an island.
It's just an island in the way. But anyway, to Councilor Patton's point, I know that the HOA has been discussing other things, but I don't know if they talked about a fence. So if they come to the next Traffic Safety Commission meeting, then I might ask them what other ideas they've come up with, because they were talking about, I know they talked about signage and, things that they can put in their yards and things like that, that they would be on the, they would purchase because as the HOA. So I can ask them what other ideas they've come up with before we just go down the road.
And I would just go so far as to say, if a fence would be more adequate.
In that one situation.
In that particular situation, can the city maybe do something to help facilitate?
Yeah, because there's a playground and a basketball
Yeah, around the playground.
park. There's two, and then there's just kids everywhere. That's a very densely populated kiddo area.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Fencing,
thank you.
concrete posts, what have you.
And I do have one last follow-up question on your thing. This rock, this boulder in the person's yard is fascinating. Do I talk to Jerry with you more about this? Because I really want to learn more about this. I saw it show up, and I'm like, where did they get this gigantic
Oh, they had it
boulder?
delivered after the Jersey barrier was
Yeah, I saw
destroyed.
that, but I'm curious to
The city was
learn.
not involved in any of that type of work.
Oh, okay.
That was out of their
This was
own.
done on their own.
I might just have to knock on their door, because I'm really curious about this
You
boulder.
can't put rocks on birch.
I already have plenty of rocks on birch that you don't know about, so.
But yeah, I mean, they got to do it. They have kiddos. They got to keep the cars out of their yard and out of their house. So
Okay.
I think that ends that subject. So thank you, everyone, for agreeing to do that. Thank you.
Anything else on your?
That's all I have for right now. Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. Park and Rec, we did meet on November 19th. We had a good meeting. But I first wanted to start out with, prior to the Park and Rec, we had another meeting here at City Hall with COGIO. And thank you to the city administrator for setting up staff to meet with COGIO. We do have some updated information that I had asked for an executive session to be scheduled, and I haven't seen it scheduled yet, to bring the council up to date, because we've got we do need to update the council on COGIO and the possibility of an athletic field location. But this is important that we move forward with this as soon as possible. And so the city administrator, she said she was going to schedule an executive session and staff would bring everybody up to speed on this particular subject. So if we could get that executive session scheduled, hopefully sometime in January, so that we can stay on top of this. And the importance of this is that we continue to show the interest to COGIO so that we don't lose the athletic fields to another municipality or another city. But the city staff has been fantastic and working with COGIO and Patrick, looking at a particular location for those athletic fields. So it's all positive, but we do need to bring the rest of you up to speed on where we're at with that. So
Yeah.
Couple things I will say. I did have, or at least I sent out an email to Patrick today. I haven't received a response. Second, we need to just make sure that we have a bona fide reason to have an executive session as well. So,
yeah, well, I think we do. Anytime we're talking about possible land acquisition, I would say is a reason for executive session.
Well, in our conversation, because we did talk about it, was that, yes, it is on the radar to do, and I think it's staff is trying to finish putting together the details to be able to have that, and what is that going to look like?
Right.
So it is on the docket to get done.
Thank you.
Sooner than later.
Yeah, thanks. Let's see, other items, Community Park. They're going right to town down at Community Park. I think you've noticed the gate's been closed because they're in the process of receiving the new bathrooms and making the water line connections to down at the Community Park as well as the A-frame down there. So that's why it's been closed for so long. But that project's moving along really well down at Community Park. Auburn Farms, can report it's kind of unclear at this point in regards to HHPR, whether or not they'll be doing the design for the Auburn Farms with the input received at the public hearing. So staff needs further direction on that in regards to the design for Auburn Farms.
Yeah, I posed a question to the city attorney today, so
Okay,
we'll
awesome.
see what he
Thank you.
says.
Thank you. And then Legacy Park Exercise Court, still waiting on the bids for that.
We should have, we've got one, we should have the other two.
You're not new, you know the process. Thank you, Jerry.
We received one bid and hopefully have 2 more bids by this week or early next week for that. We've been trying to get that process rolling. We have the fitness, the equipment stored at Public Works. We want to get that slab board and going. It's just, I'm waiting for everyone to kind of slow down from the construction season and want some winter work. So
Yeah.
we've been pushing hard, so hopefully we'll see something pretty soon on that.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
Yep.
Yeah. And great work by your staff, by Ken and everybody too.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I'll pass that on.
And Maple Street Park, the importance of we need to stay on top of Maple Street Park so that when we press that go button, that everything, all the contracts and everything are in place for that.
Councilor Davis, we just, Barry Johnson and I just received some like preliminary drawings of it today, and we have a meeting set up for 10 o'clock Friday to get everything ironed out. So hopefully you guys will be seeing a contract at council here soon for that, so we can be ready to go July 1.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's going to be time sensitive.
It is.
Yeah.
And I was going to bring that up in our leadership team meeting tomorrow with the city administrator.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
You bet.
And then the Park and Rec Committee did just a brainstorming session, just items as they get into the budget year of different things that to put on the wish list for the budget. One of the items that was brought up by Ken was talking about Wade Park, trying to get some additional trash cans, benches. One thing that we're in dire need of is replacing that bathroom. It's quite old and dilapidated inside and stuff. So the Park and Rec Committee's looking at that. It's a 20-year-old facility, and so there's a lot of issues within the Wade Park bathroom. So they looked at that, and the Park and Rec Committee's continuing to look at that as well. And then we also looked at down in the Honda pits, the possibilities of putting in a pedal park project, and we saw a film, basically a presentation on pedal parks, where you bring bikes and or it's tied in with the skate park. And Sandy and a lot of other communities have put these pedal parks in. And it can be used by adults and kids as a pedal park for your bikes and stuff, with some jumps and things like that. But it would tie in real well, something like that. And so I'll bring more information back to council on that as the Park and Rec Committee looks at that as well. So it was pretty unique and pretty cool looking at the various communities that have put in those pedal parks. So fire department getting into their goal-setting budget process, just like the city. Very busy year this last New Year's Eve. Day before New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve and New Year's were exceptionally busy for us. Pushing well over 25 calls per day on those days, and it seems like a lot of them happened after midnight. So it was pretty busy for both police and fire, especially on New Year's Eve. Just for the citizens too, the Fire Department Volunteer Association does the fireworks. And this last year, fireworks cost went up to $20,000. And so they're started their fundraising for fireworks, for the fireworks display on the 4th of July, because we're in need of about $18,000 to make the fireworks happen again this July. We have made the down payment, so it is going to happen. But the mayor said he'd write the check for what we're short on, so. I figured that would get your attention. And just if you'd keep in your thoughts and prayers too, tragic incident yesterday in which a Tualatin Valley firefighter lost his life, was shot after getting off duty. And the situation is unclear, but if you see the flags at half staff at fire stations, that's what it's for. It's a veteran firefighter, 46 years, that was shot after his shift. So just keep that firefighter and their family in your thoughts and prayers. That's it for my reports.
So, Councillor Davis, if someone wants to provide funds for the fireworks fundraising, how do they do that?
To go to our Facebook site, and you can either donate online or simply stop by the fire station and leave your donation for the Volunteer Firefighters Association Fireworks Fund.
Okay.
And is that a 501c3
Yes, it is.
organization?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
so
it
you
is.
can get a tax deduction for
Yep.
fireworks.
Thank you. Thanks for that commercial.
It's good to have an accountant on the board. Yes, Councillor Patton.
Something to follow up regarding the parks thing, this jogged my memory. Over a year ago, we sent the dog park back to the Parks Board, and there has been no updates at all. I think it's time that we get an update on that, because I fear that one of the impetuses of sending that back like that was to make that go away, and I will assure you that it's not just going to go away.
No, and we have been discussing it at the Parks and Rec Committee and looking at probable locations for that and working with Public Works to try to identify some land that we could bring that back. It is on the master plan and we will address it.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else, sir?
Nope.
Councillor Stearns.
I have nothing right now to discuss.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I have another 30 seconds?
Sure.
Thank you. I just have a message for the entire community. This is a hard time of year. So if you're somebody you know is feeling down, reach out to 988 or anybody. Just please get help. Thank you. Can I have a minute?
Yeah. We will move into city administrator business and staff reports.
First of all, hopefully you have all put on your calendar, January 25th is the Clackamas City's dinner. We are getting RSVPs from our legislative council, legislators in the area. The program for that night will be a legislative briefing on what's coming up during the session. So we're getting some traction on that. So please put that on your calendar if you don't have it already. I think you all received, and I received, a big package of your stipulated orders from the Ethics Commission. And so it is time to schedule that training session. I'm hoping that we can schedule it for a work session time, but I don't know what the time of the training or how long the training will be. So I've heard an hour, I've heard 2 hours. So, if it's 2 hours and we did it in a work session time, we'd either need to start early or else we'd need to find another time. So I will be in touch with you about that. And I don't think there's going to be enough time to work it into your goal setting. And that's probably a little too early, but we have to have it by May 17th of 2024. So we've got time. Let's see. About a month ago, the county administrator, Gary Schmidt, sent me an email that said that the county is looking for proposals from cities to hire, not to hire, but proposals from cities for homeless initiative grants. And I put out an email to staff and to to various community agencies saying, do you have any ideas? We have an idea from our library staff that they're working on, as well as from the Canby Center. So the deadline for applying for those grants is the end of January. We've got some time. And I'll be meeting with the library and the Canby Center to see if there is some overlap or some coordination that can be had amongst what those grants will be. We're not required to only submit one, but if there's some overlap there, I want to make sure that those two grant applications support each other as well. So I just wanted you to know that we were pursuing applying for at least a couple of homeless initiative grants with Clackamas County. And then just wanted to flash that January 17th is the upcoming mid-year budget committee review. So we are moving ahead, and I haven't forgotten that idea. So that's all I have.
Yes.
Just a question about the homeless services grant. Would that be money used for? Are there shelters in Canby, or is that going to be for? I'm just was curious about what the what the grant is, how much it is, and what exactly we're talking about. A grant for spending money on by the library.
I'm sorry, I don't have the total amount of funding available. I think it's $5 million.
So we're applying for a $5 million grant? Or,
No, the amount that the county has set aside for all proposers to submit. So we may have a $100,000 grant. And I don't know what the amounts are going to be that are coming from the library or the Canby Center yet. I just want the City of Canby to be represented in that pool of applicants that can tap into that $5 million.
What would the money be used for?
This is part of an overall goal of ensuring adequate geographic distribution of homeless resources across the entire county to meet the specific needs of each community and prevent any one community. That doesn't really tell. I will.
If you got $100,000 tomorrow, what would it be spent on? That's kind of my question. Like, if they dropped $100,000 for that purpose, what would it do?
By the sound of it, it's not coming to the city.
Okay.
It's coming to, well, I guess if the library gets a grant, then the city would act as the overseer of that. If it goes to the Canby Center, then their board and director would handle that. Yeah.
Spend it that way.
So that's for them to put
I
into the grant.
will give you more information about what.
I'm just curious about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that, and I'm sorry, this is an accounting and an economic analysis, but in general, it's commonly understood that if you want more of something, you subsidize it. And so that's one of the things that I think that some people overlook when some of these things are happening, is that's why would they give grants for electric cars, because they want more electric cars. It's a common economic principle. But we got to watch out. I think, in my mind, if we're subsidizing something, is it because we expect to get more of it? Or is it something that we want to use the money to get less of it? And I think that without going into any details, I think that's something that people need to consider, that in general, if you subsidize something, you get more of it. But if you spend it wisely, you might be able to end up getting less of it. And I think that should be a key concern if we're spending public money in that way.
Well, and I think to your point, Counselor Stearns, is that we don't have homeless shelters here in Canby, and so more times than not, when we have individuals or families in that situation, they're often referred to Oregon City, where county offices are and where those services are at. So I don't know if in the grants from the Canby Center or whatnot, if that's something they're trying to do to have those services, but that's not really been their mission, so to speak. So I don't know, what that would look like. The only thing is that process closed? Are they still looking for people to submit?
Oh, yeah. That deadline isn't until the end of January.
Okay.
So I just found the sentence, and it's pretty broad. The county intends to fund city-led initiatives around homelessness. So I think it's pretty broad right now.
If you wouldn't mind, would you send me that link? Because I think I think it would be worth looking into, because I know that we do run during the winter, there are a couple of warming shelters, and then in the summer, cooling shelters as well. That may benefit from at least, applying to see if there's funds to do that, to help offset the costs of running those.
Yeah.
Councilor Patton?
Just as a reminder with the stipulated agreement thing, when we do that setup, we need to make sure to loop former Councilor Varwig and Bangs in that, because they have to go through that training as well. Just because they're no longer on council doesn't mean they are out of that. So we want to make sure that they are included.
Yeah, and I intend to, I intend to tell the leadership team that they will also participate in that training, and they'll be happy to participate in that training. But I also want to open up the invitation to our advisory committees as well. So, I know it's executive session statute, but, every now and then, the Planning Commission might go into executive session. I think it would help everybody to hear this training and receive this information. But I want to make sure that, the people that, the stipulated order pertains to are available first, so.
I guess something else I'll just throw out is, I know, maybe extending an invitation to the Canby Utility Board to see, because I know they get some training. I participated in their training, but it was super quick during a meeting, before a meeting, so maybe include them. And, if we're having a party, you might as well see if there's any other organizations in the community that would be interested in participating in it as well, and opening it up to Rotary and the fire district and other people, if they want to send folks in, just to get an understanding of that, just as a community service.
Yeah, no, I think the more the merrier, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Okay. Council President Hensley, you had something?
I was just curious, is this training specifically only for executive session statutes, or is it kind of going to have any general public meeting law? That would be that would be something more beneficial, more useful for the advisory committees.
I think that it can be, as long as we cover what needs to be covered to address the stipulated order. I think that is the bare minimum that it needs to cover. If there's another topic that ethics staff can throw in, they're happy to do that.
Okay. I'm just thinking that executive session specifically really doesn't really touch the committees as much as, like you said, the Planning Commission maybe, but.
Yeah, but it could be a little bit about.
I would want it to be useful for them if they're.
Laws, yeah. Okay.
And I will say that when I was chatting with the ethics folk, the investigator, she had said that they have a litany of things that they could cover. And so this is going to be tailored to what Canby wants and needs. And so we can say, you know, we want a little bit of this, we want a little bit of that, and then they will customize that training based on what we would like to provide.
Yeah, so if you have specific ideas that you want to make sure get addressed, please let me know on the side, and we will incorporate those into the training. Yeah,
Great.
that's it.
That's it? Okay. Next on the agenda is another opportunity for citizen input. Looking at the citizens.
No input.
Once, twice, moving on. Action review.
You have approved the consent agenda and approved ordinance 1615 to a second reading on January 17th, 2024.
I know. Great, thank you. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oh boy, here it comes.
No, I think we had an ample meeting tonight. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about it.
Okay.
He's been
So the
criticized.
motion's been made by Council President Hensley
I like it.
and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's what I was expecting. Great. Our meeting is adjourned. Canby, good night, and again, Happy New Year.
Now, if it was 8:22.